Tactica.
From being actually revealed too early, to the family's questioning why making an Persona 5 spinoff, to Persona 3 Reload also stealing all of its thunder, Persona 5 Tactica came to be. The latest spin-off Persona series, this time a tactical RPG gameplay style. Interesting choice, is kind of first for Persona series, and me as a Devil Sniper fan wondering if we couldn't get just like another one of those. But I feel like Persona 5 Tactica does actually manage to incorporate the mechanics of Persona into the combat very well, albeit if it does suffer from lack of variety in the mission structure, and also if I don't really feel like the fantasies of hearts really add much to the narrative this time around, so it's more so up to the new characters to hold up the story, to which for the most part, I feel like it does pretty well. The story starts with the fantasies relaxing in LeBlanc until they're suddenly transported to a new world for each of the kingdom, after which they're attacked by a new kind of enemies called the Legionnaires, where most of the party gets taken away by this kingdom's ruler named Marie, because I swear the fan thieves can't stop being reset in every single spin-off, who plans to hold the greatest wedding ever. I feel like an invitation and free food would have been easier than subjugation. Joker and Morgana are saved by later Rebel Court, Arena, and the group sought to topple Marie's rule, take to capture Phantom Thieves, and ignite a revolution. In the process, they come across a prisoner named Toshiro Katakabe, a politician who was actually missing in the Phantom Thieves world. I feel this introduction is a good job setting the situation, the people involved, and the stakes. The problem I have is that despite how well things are set up in its introduction, this first arc does often have the characters repeat themselves, whether it be reinforcing the team up between the Phantom Thieves and the Rebel Corps, or trying to repeatedly emphasize how awful of a ruler Marie is, despite the fact that there's not really much to her. This first arc, I feel, didn't need to be as long as it was, which is a problem I also have with the game's final arc, but that's for different reasons. As for the Phantom Thieves, don't add much. I feel like their dialogue doesn't do much for the story, aside from like one moment with Futaba, another moment with Haru. Leaving Erina and Toshiro hold the narrative, the thing I feel they succeed in doing. Toshiro's character personality mixes well with Erina's desire for evolution, with Erina giving Toshiro courage, while in return, Toshiro helps Erina learn not to just charge without a plan, and then remember, most importantly, her safety does matter, because you can't lead a revolution without a leader. The combat is where Persona 5 Tactica truly shines. You can pick up to 3 party members to send out, you can swap out characters if anyone loses their HP, assuming you're not on the hard difficulties. Each member also adds a passive buff to the party, as long as they're in use. Later, you have access to Futaba, you can occasionally heal the party's HP, whenever she feels like it, which is not often, and with upgrades can heal SB2, or even learn Final Guard, the ability to save an ally from a fatal hit. Or not, because when it's worthless nav doesn't use it when I need her to! Your opponents access to melee attacks to enemies flying and take their spot, guns for long range, and each member has their own quirks to their guns. Both offensive and supportive attack skills, with the Phantom Thieves using their personas, you'd be able to equip a sub-persona, although Erina can't use personas, so it does feel like she kinda lacks a bit because she doesn't have that extra buff and oomph the Phantom Thieves have. There's also a voltage meter to pull off a unique skill, but I find the unique skills for Erina and Ans useful. Mostly Ans, as her ability, Femme Fatale, allows you to also get an extra turn with her, which can really add up to your strategy potential. The one more mechanic has also been changed for this game, because allies and enemies don't have weaknesses anymore. Instead, anytime a character who is outside of cover is attacked, they'll take critical damage, and the attacker will receive one more. It is so amazing to get one more in this game, because of the fact that every single time you do, it also basically like resets your turn, so your character can also keep moving again. It is so much fun to just get a constant string of one-mores on enemies, get a perfect setup, then just have your character just basically walk across the entire battlefield. And even better, with the change to the all-out attack system called Triple Threat, where if someone gets a one more, and the enemy's still alive, there will then be a triangle that will be formed between the party members. Any enemies in that triangle will take a lot of damage, and it is so crazy to practically increase the triangle to like map size and just capture a bunch of enemies in a triple threat and just decimate the entire battlefield. Get everybody in this triple threat.
Holy shit.
This game said make good use of triple threat. I'm doing it. This change is something I really like because of the fact that just how much customization feeling you have, and the fact you're able to just move around the battlefield. The fact that also incentivises also having stuff like Frey, for me, is why I also use Makoto in my party, so that way get Frey, pulling me out of cover, so that way I can have a character just keep hitting them, and then just go on the battlefield, create this giant triple threat. It is such a great mechanic, repurposing of the one more and all attack features that I am glad they put into this game. I mentioned earlier, there are elemental weaknesses this time around. So what do the affinities do this time? Well, Agi causes burning, so the enemies take damage over time, and removes them from cover. Bufu freezes enemies, so they miss one turn, unless you attack them. Garu causes sweep, which will make it so that way the enemy gets sent flying, don't forget them out of cover. Zio causes shock, which will make it so that not only they can't move their next turn, but they can also not take cover. Frey causes vortex, which will pull enemies towards the person being attacked, which is great for pulling a bunch of people out of cover. Sai causes Hypno, which will make enemies go towards the attacker, which I don't really like. I really find that suicide button. Koga causes Dizziness, which the enemy ends up having random movement. It can still attack, but have random movement. And Aha causes Despair, which allows the attacker to actually take the enemy's movement ability for yourself, allowing you to move even more when you get one more. And Arena has a unique one called Forgetfulness, which will actually make it so the enemy can't attack the next turn. They can still move, but they won't be able to attack, which is pretty interesting. But like I said earlier, didn't really use Arena much. Surprisingly, Spinoff Tactica didn't really feel the need to have healing spells. Most of the game didn't really have healing spells on me, especially since that's a skill tree. Every character can passively heal at the end of their turn, and I feel like just that is enough. You also have Futaba, who I mentioned rarely does things, but even she, by default, still heals people, and you can even upgrade that or add SP. Same with the characters, also heal SP per turn, meaning Tactica feels kind of somewhat on the easier side, which is against par for, of course, for a Persona 5 game, but it makes it feel like just weird how the healing spells just feel not that useful, not really something I really use much. Only towards the end of the game did I use it, and that was because I effectively just turned all my characters into tanks who effectively just took whatever hit they could do, especially against the final boss, who didn't really hurt them that much. In fact, not many bosses in general can really deal much damage with enemies. Instead, most of your danger will come if your character gets surrounded and enemies keep attacking one to the other. That is when your party member is completely screwed. But individually, enemies aren't really that much of a threat, surprisingly. Also, real quick, here's something I want to rant a bit about. Okay, the game has several enemy types with a very good variety, but there's one enemy I want to talk about. This guy right here. See this guy over here with the big hands? This guy over here's gimmick is that he can't move a lot, but if he does, he's able to hit hard and also send your characters out of cover, which is pretty good. But he also has the ability where if you attack them, then they counter, and their counter allows them to do a jump, which also jump over so many obstacles, even gaps. Oh no. Oh, I love him, Joe.
Oh.
And just try and hit you. Only then can you then be able to hit them for one more. Like this, it's fine, it's a unique enemy type, and I like the fact that it has kind of this one entire risk reward thing before you're able to fully start taking them down. My problem is when the game starts just sending these guys out a lot, especially later parts of the game, where you could just start a mission and there's like 3 of them from the start. And whenever a mission just has a bunch of these guys all at once, it just lets me know that the developers basically just gave up on that mission. It just basically decided to throw what I felt was the most difficult enemy types to deal with, especially when there are several points where they decide to, hey, I mentioned they can counter, so of course, let's put them guys on freaking relatively small platforms so that way it's more difficult to get away from that counter. Because screw you, I guess, and it's like, it just gets annoying. Like, there's nothing wrong with the enemy type itself when the game later on just keeps using them over and over and over. It's like, you ran out of ideas, didn't you? I just want to know. There's already 3 big guys.
Yeah.
I didn't move the camera yet, there's already 3. What is the game's obsession? An issue I was Spinoff Tactica is the lack of mission types in the game. Like, there's a few that get used, and there's even one unique mission type that's only exclusive towards the first arc of the game. But the other arcs don't have their own unique mission types, and instead the rest of the game just mostly relies on defeat enemies, defeat enemies, defeat enemies, There's also a problem I have with the game's final arc, where it just keeps going to field enemies, and then decides, oh, reinforcements, 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 over and over and over, and just, like, the final arc just feels padded out because of it, because it feels like not much is getting done, like just stalling for time, not helped by even the characters acknowledging that this feels like there's not much going on. With even lack of cutscenes and dialogue for that final arc, which why I feel like the final arc actually ends up loses a few points a bit because of the fact that it just feels like it goes on for so long for no real reason other than padding, and the mission types are just what you've been doing the entire game. Just now, oh, there's more enemies, there's more enemies. It's just like I said, enemies aren't really that much of a threat to you. It just feels incredibly weird why they keep throwing so many at you, and why you don't have more mission types to go through. Earlier I mentioned the Phantom Thieves could equip sub-personas, so this game around, rather than Joker having a full pile of the wild card, everyone has the ability to equip sub-personas. How do you get personas? By completing missions. Something that was so passive, I actually didn't even notice it for like a few hours into the game that how I got personas. It is where you go to a Velvet Room in order to fuse personas together and then make new personas. Later, you can actually use personas to make weapons, which is actually pretty cool since they usually do more damage and have their own elemental affinity on top of it, rather than the guns you can buy in the shop, which will be expensive and will just be there for damage, but won't actually have like an affinity to go with it. So it's good to add even more quirks to your guns for customization. I feel like that's a pretty good mechanic we use for personas. Though I do find it super weird how this time around, personas can only have 2 skills, one they have by default, and the second one they only get if they're fused, which just feels weird to me. Then it also feels weird how this game still also has a level mechanic, apparently, which feels weird. I kind of have level ups, but it's more like the whole party levels up together, because I don't really feel like level ups really matter much, because everyone levels up together, and they all get points for the skill tree together. So this feels weird, but I guess I have to find some way to handicap you from actually, you know, not just being able to make the most points of personas immediately. So I guess that makes sense, don't you think? Well, that makes sense. That does make sense. Throughout the game, there are side quests to tackle, and you should do every single one you come across. Not only for the skill tree points you get for doing so, but it's also because they can teach you some tips and tricks you can do for the main missions, which I actually very appreciate. And it also helps that because the missions require certain characters, that gives you an idea what the mission's going to involve, because the mission has to involve the base abilities of that character. So you actually have a hint what you're supposed to be doing. Although there are times when you will need upgrades from the skill tree in order to pass the mission, which can feel a little bit weird because of that fact, but I guess, you know, gotta upgrade yourself at some point. But it just feel weird that one mission I got stuck on, because I didn't realize for a bit that it was an upgrade from the skill tree I needed, because I was thinking like, oh, I needed these 2 characters for the mission, so probably it involves an ability they have. So definitely do the side quests, and you also do get some conversation and dialogue, though none of it really interested me. They didn't really feel like the side quest had any dialogue or anything unique to really say, or none of the jokes were really landed for me, so it's more so for the gameplay reasons, and for that, yes, learn the tips and tricks that they teach you. Pretty useful stuff. Overall, I enjoyed playing Tactica. Even if I think the Fantasy of Hearts don't really add a whole lot to this narrative, so it's mostly on to the new characters to hold up the story. Even if I think the first and final arcs are kind of one of the game's at its weakest, especially the first arc boss, who was so disappointing I didn't even think it was actually the boss fight because how disappointing it was. But as the gameplay really shines, I really like how they managed to repurpose sometimes combat into a tactical RPG style, and just the amount of stuff you can do in combat to really strategize is just very good, albeit even if the mission lacks mission types to really take advantage of such a thing. Overall, I call this a good game. I won't call it anything great, but it's definitely a good title, and it's such a shame that's gonna get overlooked because of Persona 3 Reload still gets Thunder, people questioning why make another Persona 5 spinoff, or people also questioning why make another Persona 5 spinoff when they're still making Persona 5 the Phantom X, a mobile gacha game spinoff that kind of has more people's attention for its potential. So overall, I just think it's a good title that I also recommend, so I will say not necessarily at full price anymore. Around one nowadays, get it for like $30 to $40, which I feel is a very good price for it. As for the Repaint Your Heart DLC, I don't know, and I'm not interested in it. I am not gonna be interested in a DLC that revolves around Akechi Kasumi. They're two of my most disliked characters in the franchise. By default, that DLC is not going to attract me. But I do know the fact that our people were disappointed by it, or disappointed that it was made DLC to begin with, right in the main game. But considering they're not members of Fam Thieves, it makes sense that they'd be more, you know, a side thing rather than part of the main story. Overall, Spinoff Tactica, just a good time, good experience, and honestly, I quite recommend it.